Hiya, it's Owlet here. Sorry about the weird lighting, but I'm low light today, so it's artificial lighting it is, and that may cause for some discoloration. Hopefully I can fix it, but who knows. So the episode I'm reviewing today is Flatline by Jamie Matheson, and I've literally just finished watching it. So I have a lot to say, and it's all ready to go. So let's get on with the review. Initially, the invisible monsters, or something that you could only see out of the corner of your eye, felt very Prisoner Zero-ish, but I was glad to see that that evolved quite quickly into something else. I thought it was a clever bit of visual editing and quite comedic to watch at times. So the way that everything sort of disintegrated into the wall or phased in and out of the floor was really cool and very engaging to watch. And I haven't really seen much like that. And then when Riggsy and Clara were in that apartment crime scene, which by the way was strange that Riggsy could just walk into the first apartment, like they were just casually breaking into a crime scene, but you know, hey, whatever, weirder things have happened in Doctor Who. So they're casually breaking into a crime scene, and then they, with the police officer in the next one, when the police officer had been sucked into the wall and became a nerve system, it became like a intense, scary game of the floor is lava, as they had to kind of, you know, sit on that swing thing and hope that they didn't become a two-dimensional graffiti monster, or as they end up being known, the Boneless. I thought Riggsy was a great extra. He was very curious and playful, and also a very grounded character, and I just grew to like him more and more as the episode progressed. I think that the 2D dimension is very, I think his name's Plaxo from Adventure Time. I could be getting that wrong, you know me and names. But yeah, the guy in Adventure Time who is two-dimensional, and they sit in that alternative universe outside space and time. And that was really cool because I love Adventure Time. So I was like, yes, it's like Adventure Time and the floor is lava. This is great. It was a really interesting episode in terms of the psychology behind Doctor Who. Having Clara kind of work as the Doctor made you see that, you know, he often influences people by manipulating them and lying, though he does genuinely want to save as many people as possible. At least you hope he does. And I thought that that really profound quote of people with hope run fast and people who are doomed dawdle was a very deep and heavy quote. I was like, okay, wow, I guess that's true, but also a bit like a momentous task for Clara to take on, and she sort of came to that thought on her own conclusion, which meant that you could kind of see the Doctor persona really infusing with her personality. And it was interesting just to see Clara take the role. So people were saying that we would like to see, you know, a light Clara episode. Well, instead we've got a light Doctor episode, which was kind of interesting. I think it was very engaging. I loved this episode, in case it wasn't already really apparent. I enjoyed it from start to finish. I was making notes and watching it and pausing and rewinding. It was just really, really like, oh, wow, this is so cool. It seemed a bit of a shock for the Doctor to see someone to take on his persona. And I think this is a good thing. I think he needs a bit of a reality check. He, particularly the new Doctor, since he's a bit darker, the 11 whimsy's kind of gone, and even 11 needed a little bit of a, oi, watch what you're doing, mate, kind of moment. And so you could really see the Doctor being like, oh my goodness, is that what I'm like? And the fact that he thought the graffiti monsters were just having a misunderstanding with the humans was a nice change to the idea that every monster that comes in is evil, because, you know, that gets a bit old, and it's also just such a pessimistic view on things. But even if it was a misunderstanding, I don't think it could justify all the horrible things that they had done. Whether or not they knew that turning us into two-dimensional objects wasn't a pleasant experience for us does not in any way make it okay. So I just think it was, and you know, a change of pace, but definitely not an acceptable train of thought. When you finally saw the 2D graffiti monsters, or the Boneless, become their three-dimensional boneless selves, they kind of looked like pixelated energy-eating zombies, which was really cool. So that, you know, the way they're dragging themselves and all the pixels are like disintegrating was really interesting to watch. I just thought that they were a great alien. I'm all about new aliens, and I liked this one. The Tudors looked a lot like it had a webcam from the early 2000s, one of the old Logitech ones, which I thought was hilarious because you know, the Doctor's TARDIS does tend to have a hodgepodge of things in it. So I was like, are we really using an old school webcam? That's awesome. But that's just a little thing. But it was a little thing that I liked. I also really loved Clara's lines of, we're in the bad news. I'm leading the bad news. I thought that was quite funny. There was just so many moments that I had a real genuine laugh out loud kind of situation. And I had a giggle when Clara was like, can you move the TARDIS? You know, like the Addams Family, because I grew up watching the Addams Family. Love, love, love the Addams Family. And so for him to kind of, you know, take the thing moment and be the hand crawling across was quite cool. And I liked that the TARDIS got that small, because I mean, I own quite a few small TARDISes. TARDISes, I don't know. And it's kind of fun to think that, you know, TARDIS could be pocket sized. We could be genuinely carrying around a Time Lord. And the bag becoming kind of Mary Poppins-ish as he passed through the mallet was quite cool too. Yeah. Rigsy running along solo and acting as the hero to kind of save the day. I think I just kicked my tripod. Sorry if that just went shaky. Yes, anyway. Rigsy rushing along solo and acting as the hero to try and save the day was a really big revelation, I think, to everyone to see that often the companion kind of throws themselves in the line of fire. But it's rarely resolved in that manner. I mean, the Doctor usually kind of takes control and makes it so that the companion isn't sacrificed. But we all know as Whovians that many times the companion has been the cost. And so I think for Clara to just be so like stern and, here, I'm gonna use this headband, you can't get out of it that easily kind of thing, was a really different resolution, very different path that they could have, that scene could have taken, and I quite like that. The TARDIS became the Pandorica box type thing when it was in its safety mode. I don't understand that, and I'm not saying it in like a, oh, I think it was stupid. I would like any of you with your classic Whovian knowledge to please tell me what that was about, because I'm confused and I would love to know. Enlighten me. Doctor's dying words of you were good and you made a mighty fine doctor were definitely double-edged swords there, because we know that to be a doctor one has to be somewhat full of darkness and deceit, and you could see that that was what was happening to Clara as the episode was going on. You know, she's lying to Danny, she's lying to the people around her to manipulate them. And as she said, like, is it really a bad thing if you're lying to them for their own good, or sort of for their own good? And I think it was interesting that she emphasized the sort of for their own good, because it was also for her own personal needs. And I feel like a lot of what the Doctor does is manipulating people because he's lonely, or he needs someone to hang around with, or he needs people to, you know, help him with whatever task he's doing. There's sort of, you know, fodder for his alien fighting machine, if you will. Which is why it was interesting at the end when the Doctor asked Clara if she was okay, and she said, "Of course, I'm alive." And he was like, "A lot of people died though." And she was kind of just shrugging it off as a return to the mean. And I did mention earlier that I felt that she's becoming quite complacent regarding the deaths of people and monsters. And I think that this kind of just confirms my suspicions. There is a darkness growing in Clara, which is quite interesting but also really alarming, because, I mean, where does that go to? If the companion becomes as dark as the Doctor, then what are you left with? I did like, though, that at one point when she was losing communication with the Doctor, she was like, what would the Doctor do now? And then she said, no, what would I do now? So I kind of like to think that her final actions were her own rather than her emulating the Doctor. When the Doctor said, you know, people died and maybe the wrong people lived, I know he was referring to that grumpy Gus, but I really just think that that was possibly a bit much, but it was just a passing comment, so it doesn't really bring down the whole episode. When Danny called at the end and she was picking her, you know, message to send Danny, she picked, "I'm in a meeting?" Really? Like, that was a bit of a crummy thing to do. I mean, she could have picked, "Sorry, I'm busy, I'll call back later." That option was clearly visible on the screen, and she picked, "I'm in a meeting." You just spoke to Danny on a park bench, I mean, how many hours ago? And then he was worried about what was happening. You crashed through a window, said you'll call him back later. He knows you're in danger, and you picked, "I'm in a meeting." He's gonna know you're not in a meeting. I hope we actually get the conversation between those two in the next episode. And it's not just, look, we're going to be running through a park in a big bad wolf kind of scene, which is what it kind of looked like. I think the fleeting moment at the end with Missy confirms what some people have been theorizing in the comments about the idea that it's not heaven, but that Miss is possibly some kind of version of the TARDIS or some persona of the TARDIS. That definitely seemed to come across in that brief 5 seconds, but it's still all very mysterious, so we're gonna have to just wait to find out. But that's it. It was very, very it was a very, very action-packed episode. I did not find myself bored at any moment, and I loved all of it. So I will see you all next week for another Doctor Who review. Toodles!